Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Empowered Eczema podcast. We have my friend Jennifer here. We have worked together for years. And today she's going to share some information about topicals, her journey with her kids' eczema, and she's actually the founder of the Eczema Company. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, and if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcast, there'll be a link to the YouTube video so you can watch along, but you can listen while she presents natural products for eczema.
Yes, hi. So yes, Jennifer Roberge, and happy to be here. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. I'm happy to share a little bit about me. So I am an eczema mom, and I am, through our struggles, I am now a firm believer in healing from within, because that is what helped my son, and finding your unique triggers and reducing dependency on medication. So, and I know that this is something a lot of people feel that they're looking for a lot of different answers when they have struggles with medications. So, which can be helpful in some situations, of course. So, founder of the Eczema Company, It's Itchy Little World, and YoRo Naturals. So my story is that my son had really severe eczema when he was, goodness, actually, when he was 6 months old. We started seeing little patches of eczema, and we applied steroid cream that was prescribed by the doctor, and just kind of went from there. And things were progressing, and we noticed it kind of got worse every spring, which I will talk about later. And we just couldn't get a hold on it. It was like every time we'd apply the steroid cream, his skin got worse after we stopped. We were taking those mandatory breaks that are so important with steroids, and it just wasn't helping. And the doctors just prescribed more and more medication. And I know a lot of people can relate, because we were having just sleepless nights, right? Like my son wasn't sleeping. I had a newborn at the time. So when I wanted to sleep, I couldn't sleep because my newborn was there, and my son just would like rub his skin raw in the middle of the night. So my husband and I took turns holding him. So he wouldn't scratch himself till he bled, which just made everything worse. And he was getting infections, from playing outside and in the dirt and everything, and then scratching his skin. And it just was a big mess. And like I said, conventional medication just wasn't working for him. And I was desperate. I was crying every night. I almost divorced my husband because we didn't agree on treatments, and it was just really hard. It was a dark time, and I was grateful because my mother-in-law kept suggesting to look at more like things like, oh, it's dairy, could dairy be contributing? And we live in Montreal, and there's a lot of access to natural practitioners here. And so she encouraged me to go see a naturopath and a homeopath, and like all these different practitioners, just to get their opinions. And slowly those things did help. We did get on some homeopathic treatments, and I'll get into that in a minute. But so this is Tristan. I don't know if you could see how bad it was there at times. This is probably around the time that he was the worst. So he had a lot on his hands and his wrists. And this is the time where it was starting to spread to his face too. So this is when it was all over his body. So yeah, this was his worst. So I would say that was probably when he was, I think it was 3 years old, up and down the backs of his legs. I don't have a picture of here when one time he had this infection. He was just like, he looked like he had the worst case of chickenpox you'd ever seen. It was just these red points of infection all over his entire body. It was just a mess. But so yeah, it was really, really tough for him. And it's so interesting. You can see here behind his knees, that's still a place, in the creases of the elbow. I know it's a common place, and he did have, those were probably like some of his worst areas. But this is when he was head to toe. And then now look at him. He's the one on the left, he's just a few years older. And then all the way up to now, he's 16, and he's pretty much eczema free. He does have a little bit, and what's interesting is he does get a little bit eczema these days, but we've realized why he got worse every spring, and it was from his seasonal pollen reaction. So like he reacts really strongly to birch, and he has the oral allergy syndrome to birch. So like he can't have raw apples during the summer or birch season, because it's a cross reaction. He gets really itchy in his mouth, but birch is a big one for him. And in fact, like we've all noticed in our family, we all react to birch big time, but more in like seasonal, like more traditional symptoms, which he has too. But that was a big one. I think a lot of people don't make that connection with seasonal allergies and eczema. So that was an interesting one for us to figure out. So what worked for us in the end? So elimination diet was really helpful. I know Michelle probably talks about this quite a lot, knowing her background and her program. And then of course, then you start reading labels and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm feeding my child all these things that he reacts to and that's triggering his skin. And oh my gosh. And again, the seasonal changes as well. But in addition to that, something that worked so well for us, and it's just so simple. It's like they're scratching their skin. So we cover their hands to protect their skin from the scratching. And that was a big, just seems so obvious now, but it was a big change for us. Like I said, we were holding him, right? Like sleeping, holding him so he wouldn't scratch himself. When we started using these sleeves, like on the right, like these are scratch sleeves, and they are amazing because it covers them all the way up. So when they're little, they can't really get out of these, and it covers their hands with silk mittens, and so they can't open their skin overnight. So the skin starts to heal. Even if they still have eczema, it doesn't get worse. Like it kind of like peaks and it can't get worse, and you're not fighting infections. It's amazing. Like it changed a lot for us. So there's all kinds of solutions now, like not just the scratch sleeves. They have some, maybe gloves work for you, or maybe like they make some that we sell that you can open and close the mittens. So anyway, a lot of different choices there, but I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you have an itchy child, try these. And if our son, or Tristan, his name is, Tristan's eczema was bad all day long, of course, and the itching was bad all day. And sometimes he'd go into these itch trances at the park. And so we'd whip out the like sleeves, put the sleeves on him at the park and cover him up. And it was just amazing. So we like didn't leave the house in this time when we were trying to figure out what was going on and help him when he was around 3. Really helped us a lot. So anyway. So the other things that help for us is moving to more natural creams. So I don't know about you, but like when we were prescribed a lot of the stuff from the drugstore, from the dermatologist, which is what they know really well, right? Like they learn all about that, the big pharmaceutical creams. And sometimes they work well for people, but like in our situation, we noticed that every single one they prescribed burned, Tristan. And so what I discovered was like, we started moving towards natural stuff just to try to see. And when we used balms that didn't have any of these like added preservatives and some of the like alcohols in them, they didn't burn his skin. And so from what I understand, and I've talked to some dermatologists, and most of them think that it's not the alcohol in it that's burning. So maybe it's not the alcohol in those lotions. I feel like it is, but perhaps it's some of the other preservatives. But when we moved to the balms, it helped, water-based balms, and it was amazing because then you weren't chasing your child like all over the house, running away screaming. And like when you see your child suffering in the beginning with itchy skin, the last thing you want to do is make them burn, right? And so I highly suggest moving to like an oil-based balm. This is the one that like, it's our bestseller, and we love this one, and we use it on eczema. We use it on like dry skin and chapped skin and everything. It's got 6 natural ingredients. The organic Manuka skin soothing cream, but a lot of the oil-based balms out there work really well, and I highly suggest trying it if you have problems with products burning the skin. And I mean, my the whole thing is like, if you have itchy, irritated, open wounds on your skin, which is eczema basically, and you're applying something with alcohol, like of course it's going to burn, right? So anyway, try balm. So that helped really well. As you saw in the pictures, Tristan suffered from really severe eczema on his hands. So not only did we apply that cream twice a day and anytime he washed his hands, but we started with like super simple soaps. Like we went back to nature. And originally, like I have since created this bar of soap that I'll recommend. But in the beginning, we were using what I loved. It was a soap bar made with olive oil, and like that was it. I think it was olive oil and lye, and that was the only ingredients. And it was amazing. It's called Nablus soap. It's a Palestinian made soap actually. And it was beautiful, and it's super hard to find now, and I haven't been able to find them. So for me, I made something else that I love, which is this one. It's coconut oil, sunflower oil, which we know are amazing for eczema, and coconut oil, oh my goodness, one more. I think there's shea in there. What is it? Yeah, coconut, sunflower, and shea. It's right there in the notes, and so it's also super clean, and I love it, and it's just simple, and it's not drying, it's very fatty. So use a really simple soap. Read the ingredients. If you don't understand what they are, it's not simple enough. Wash infrequently. So basically, if the hands aren't dirty, try not to wash. Like we know now, science shows that like germs are good for us to an extent. So the less you wash, the better. And then when you do wash with soap, use something super gentle, and then always moisturize afterwards. And I recommend covering up the hands overnight. So we did that too. You can use like the mittens we showed or like gloves and locking in that moisture. And it's like that changes things dramatically as too. So all of this is really good while you're healing from within with like a program like Michelle's, right? You're desperate at these times and you're just looking for relief. So these things can help, but it's really, they're band-aid solutions. They are not the long-term solution, like Michelle knows, and with her program, like that is where you're going to see the long-term healing. But this can help you during the process, is what I like to say. So another thing that works really well, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but wet and dry wrapping. So dry wrapping is essentially something probably a lot of you already do, which is applying moisturizer and then covering the skin. Simple, like with the gloves, like you go to bed, you put the moisturizer on and you wear gloves to bed. That's dry wrapping. It's super simple. You might already be doing it and didn't even know there was a term for it. So that works really well. The other thing that we really like, but it's like an elevated next level approach, is wet wrapping. So wet wrapping is amazing because you hydrate the skin, you moisturize to lock it in, and then you keep it moist for a long period of time. So it's like this ultra hydrating treatment. A lot of dermatologists recommend this. The one big thing to know, never do it without speaking to your doctor, especially if you're using medication, because this amplifies everything. So it's just like, it could take steroid cream and just like completely double, triple the effect of it, which may be too much, right? When we're talking about some of the big medications that are out there. So how you wet wrap, it's pretty simple, honestly. You are going to soak in lukewarm bath water for like 15 to 20 minutes. Don't use any soap. Some people like to add oil to the bath, which you can do. You could also do like ground oats and like a tea bag type thing to make it like a little bit more, that's good for the itch, right? Like the oats and the colloidal oats. You can then, after that, you get out and you towel dry and you seal with like a natural eczema cream, and something with a balm would be better, right? Because it sits on the skin and it stays for longer with the wax in it and everything. So lotions tend to get sucked up quicker and they just don't hydrate as long. And then you're gonna wear, this is where it gets a little interesting. So you're gonna take some really fitted clothing. You best if you're doing something like we make a line remedy wear with Tencel and zinc, which is really great. You can also do things like cotton clothing, but natural fibers, nothing polyester, nothing nylon, nothing like that. And you're going to dampen it in lukewarm water. So you're going to dump it in the water and then you're going to wring it out, and then it's going to be really damp, and you put that on top of your moisturized skin. And then you cover it with another layer of clothing that's a little bit looser that will fit on top. And you leave it for a minimum of 2 hours. What we used to do, because my son was really young when he was having the worst trouble, so he was around 3, we would let him watch a movie during that time, because it's not comfortable. It's not fun to sit in wet clothes. It's weird, and kids are gonna fight it. So as soon as I started like wrapping him up in his clothes, I would turn on the movie and he would just be like he didn't watch movies much at the time, so he was like a little, it's terrible to say, right? Distraction by screen, but sometimes important. He would turn into a little zombie and just stare at the screen, and his itching would stop. He would just let me wrap him up, and then we'd plop him on the sofa. He'd have his treatment and then turn off the movie and take everything off. Some people really love to do this overnight, and that's great if you can fall asleep in wet clothing and if your child can, so that's great. The thing to watch out for that is if the skin dries out before you remove everything and reapply another layer of moisturizer, you're actually it can have the opposite effect. It can actually dry you out, and it's not a good situation. So we had trouble. We tried the overnight thing. Tristan fell asleep and that was fine, but what was not good was that we live up north, and I think it was in the winter, and so the heaters were on and it dried him out completely. So it sucked up all the moisture, and I wasn't able to, like, it didn't stay moist overnight. So that's not good. So that's when we moved to the 2 hours. So just notice that. And so, like I said, afterwards, you remove everything and you put on the cream again, and that's it. And I would say that was a really interesting thing to learn, because when things were really hard and like Tristan was just so itchy, like just nonstop, these itch trances, we'd call them. He'd just go into them like back to back. This was like the only thing that kind of gave us an immediate relief, immediate break. You can't do this long term. And again, it is a band-aid approach. It will not heal your skin. But when you are just out of your mind from how difficult it is with a child with eczema or yourself, and you just can't even think straight, this worked really well. You could do it for a couple of days, but not much longer than that because your skin starts to become really dependent on the treatment. And it's not what you want. So like for just to break things up, fine. If you're worried at all about it, talk to your dermatologist. There's some dermatologists that just adore this and is like one of the main things they recommend. And there's some that are kind of like, eh. So, you could try it and talk to your doctor and see what you think. But we found really great results with it. Did you ever try wet wrapping, Michelle?
No, I actually didn't know the steps of wet wrapping, so this is really informational for me as well.
Okay, yeah, game changer. Like really, when you need a break, it's awesome. Um, so other things that worked for us. So there's a lot of debate around like detergents, I know, in the eczema community. And there's a lot of parents that feel like soap or certain types of soap or certain types of detergents will trigger eczema. That wasn't the case for us, but I know that some people are really sensitive to different ingredients and they can be in soap. And so that would be, or detergents, and that would be a situation there. The other thing to know, in our case, what happened was um, I researched a lot on this since we were looking, right? You look at all the is that this is common knowledge, I guess, but it was new to me. Detergents are super alkaline. And what is the skin like? The skin likes more acidic products, right? Like pH balance, slightly acidic. That's what the skin likes. So if you have someone that has eczema and you wash their clothes in regular detergent, even natural detergent, very alkaline, that alkalinity is in the clothes. Like it doesn't wash out. Like if it takes, I forget what it said, I think it was 10 times washing your clothes with water after they've been washed with detergent to get the detergent out. So it remains, the residue from the detergent sits in your clothes for up to 10 washes. So again, if you have eczema and you're super irritated and you have all these open wounds and the skin needs alkaline stuff and you're putting things on you, sitting there all day long, this alkaline like residue, what do you think this is going to happen to the skin? Like it's not good for it. So the best things are, a lot of people like to do vinegar washes, baking soda washes. Some people just wash with water. I loved these soap nuts. I don't know if you see those there. We did that, but again, it worked for us, right? It didn't further irritate my son's skin. It helped him, but there might be a debate there if they're more alkaline. I think they're less alkaline than detergent, but they still are a little bit alkaline. So if you're really concerned, those mineral balls are amazing. The Smart Clean mineral balls, they're zero alkalinity. They're really good for the skin. Everything in there it's a rubber ball, and then everything inside, it's these minerals that can be composted when it's finished. So it's super cool and eco-friendly, and I love those. And the soap nuts can be composted, which are really fun. So I love that. I love sustainable stuff. So that was really neat to discover those two things. But yeah, again, if you're super inflamed, super itchy, like look at your detergent. Natural and dye-free and color-free are not always the right answer because it's still alkaline. So if you go to allergen-free or the free from detergents, it's not enough, and you do the natural detergents, it's not enough, try just skipping detergent and like wash your clothes with water and get it out. And if you feel like you need something, there's vinegar, there's baking soda. So those are really good options. So yeah. Oh, and there we are. We're at the end. So that's what we did for Tristan. This is a lot of, it works for me. It works for a lot of people. A lot of these things we sell on our website because I want to make it easy for people to find things for their eczema. And we know not everything works for everyone. There's not one thing that works for everyone, right? It's trial and error. So I made available things that worked for my son and every other people in the eczema community that I know work for them, and what our customers tell us they love. And so that's what I do. I want to make people's lives with eczema easier because I know as an eczema mom, it is really hard. It's really hard. And so yeah, that's why I started the eczema company.
Well, I absolutely loved this, not only for the topical side of things, because I spend so much of my time talking about from the inside out, but our skin is topical, and to be able to touch on the options that we have about doing things topically, I love, but I also love that this is really great for parents to listen to because I also do a lot of work for adults, but I have a lot of parents that follow me. So I'm excited to share this to other parents who have gone through all of the misery that you had to go through as a mom with all that. So I actually do have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah, and can I just pause for a quick second and
Yeah.
say, I didn't realize there's like a little leg here. Do you see it?
Oh, how cute.
So that is my dead doggy over there. He's passed out. He had some fun and now he's tired. So anyway, just
Oh.
thought that was funny. I was like, I should probably explain what is happening in that corner over there.
Yes, if you've seen the leg in her
Little tail
her
leg.
video.
Uh,
So one question that I have is, I've been working with you for a really long time and I love a lot of the topical products that you have. My audience, I don't think is going to be familiar with what Tencel is infused with zinc. So can you talk through what exactly that fabric is? How is it infused with zinc? And what does the zinc do for the skin?
Sure. So I had during my time with the Eczema Company, we had customers that would approach us asking for more options for adults with eczema. And so I was always on the lookout for like new clothing, and there's a lot of stuff with cotton. And then I started hearing about these therapeutic fabrics that were coming out, and silver was really popular. And then I started hearing it, and I don't like that because silver runs it's not good in the waterways basically, and that's what when you wash it, it's yeah, so it washes out the clothes and into the waterways. It's not a good thing for the environment. um there was silk, and I don't love silk because a lot of times it's treated, it's medicinal silk, and it's can be grown with pesticides, and it's not my favorite. But some people find silk really great, and I think you can find good ethical sources of silk. So then I started hearing about Tencel, and Tencel is cool because they say it's, and I always get it confused, it's either softer than silk and smoother than cotton, or smoother than cotton, softer than silk. I can't ever remember. But anyway, that sounds cool, huh? Right? Like that sounds lovely, especially for someone with eczema that's got irritated skin. It's like that is like the holy grail of like fabric.
Yeah.
It's also like closed loop process. So how it's made, Tencel is cool. It's made in Europe. I think they might do some in, I think they might be producing some in America, but like the majority of it's done in Europe. So they have these sustainable forests made dedicated specifically for this process, and they're usually birch or eucalyptus trees that they grow, and then they harvest them and they create like a wood pulp, and then they like they what would you say? Like, I guess they saw it down into like a dusty kind of like thing. And this does not sound good for skin, right? You're like dust, like wood pulp on skin, like
I
what?
was actually
But
just laughing about how it's birch and your son has such a issue with birch and the irony that birch actually helps.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, but I mean, I guess at the same time, with what is it? Pollen is from the flower of the tree, and then the but it's full circle, right? Like the
Yeah,
tree
it's
hurts
full
him, and now
circle.
it's helping him.
Yeah.
It's so strange. Anyway, so then they create this like they create like a slush with water, and then the sawdust, and then it creates cellulose. And cellulose, they're able to weave that into this thread, or they create a fiber from it, and then you create thread from it. So they take this Tencel, it's a super closed loop process, which means they don't use extra water, and they keep the water in the cycle, and the energy, it's very low. And so it's a very ethical, very sustainable process. And then they have the fiber, the Tencel fiber. Then they take zinc, so zinc oxide, which we all know this is like a common powder. It's what they use to make mineral sunscreens and all this stuff. Super, super good for the skin. They put the fiber, the powder in with the fiber, and it just gets like tossed and like, so it becomes embedded almost like it's and then what happens is I've seen companies that are starting to use zinc and copper and all this, and they coat it. This is not a coating. This is done at like the fiber level. So it's really, really ingrained, and they create the thread, and then we create the thread ourselves. And then from the thread, we weave into, or sorry, we don't weave, we knit the fabric. And then then it's cut and made into clothing. So that's how the zinc is added. Now, so zinc oxide, what's so cool? So you heard about Tencel, why it's so amazing. And then zinc is really cool because it's antibacterial, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, like all these things. And it just works great for the skin. And there's a study, so that's why I use those, right, for remedy wear. I made this line of remedy wear under YoRo Naturals that we sell at the Eczema Company. And there was a study done at a university in Germany using those fibers. It was a private study, so it wasn't our clothes, but the exact same materials. And I think it was when they wore I'd have to go back and look at the study. It's on our website, but after 3 or 4 consecutive nights, the itching was like greatly reduced, and they slept well for the first time. And it was like, it was really good. So what we do is, like with Remedy Wear, I wanted people to be able to have a therapeutic material that worked like all day long. So we talked about, when you're washing stuff with laundry detergent and they're wearing the alkaline stuff all day long. But like here, what if you had a fabric that had a treatment kind of in it already, right? And you're just wearing that, and it's soothing, it's comfortable, it helps with the itch. So that's why we made it. You can wear it just dry, like the dry wrapping, or you don't even need moisturizer underneath. So we always recommend you wear it dry first. And if that's not enough, then you can add your cream with it. And if that's not enough, then you can try wet wrapping. So you can wet wrap with as well, and it would intensify the effect of the zinc and the Tencel in the clothing. So that's one of my big contributions, I would say, to the eczema community. It's really popular, especially with people that have red skin syndrome or topical steroid withdrawal, because they don't want to put moisturizer on their skin. They kind of like went cold turkey. And so this is one of the few things that they feel like can help. So it's really good for that.
I tell people to use zinc oxide all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very exciting to hear. And I've known about Tencel for a long time through you, and to hear actually how it's made is fascinating. So I'm like
Mm.
very excited by that. I have this whole visualization in my mind about all the sawdust and the zinc oxide and all that.
I should have used that word sawdust. It's like that. How would that ever be good for eczema? It's
I
just like
feel like it kind of makes sense though. I'm like, yeah, yeah. It's like how you make paper. I'm like, it breaks down and then we create
yeah.
something out of it.
And somehow it becomes this super soft, smooth fiber. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Thank goodness there's people that know what they're doing when they're making fibers like this.
Right? My second question is, so on along the lines of like alkalinity and acidity with the skin, your skin has a microbiome, which I'm sure you know. Have you ever looked into like a spray probiotics? Have you ever used that? Do you know anything about that sort of like topical sprayed probiotics?
No, I don't. But I don't remember the name of it, but Dr. Peter Leo, he was suggesting this, and I haven't found any that's kind of a new thing, right? So I haven't found any, and that's a good reminder to me to go look, because we're very, very, very selective in the products we carry, because they have to be very clean. And I would have to go look to see, because I want to make sure that if I'm going to suggest something, that it doesn't have any added fillers, and certain preservatives are fine, but others are not. So I'd want to look. But yeah, I would love to suggest that. But I think that would be a great, yes, of course.
Back
That's like one of the new things.
I actually used I think the brand is called Mother Dirt.
Yes, I've heard of this one.
I
Yeah.
have it up right now. I don't know if it's clean, but I remember like years ago when I actually
I'll look
did
at that.
have eczema, there was a brand that came out and they're like, "Do you want to try this probiotic spray?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" So I think it's a really interesting concept too about, when we're talking about topicals, I don't think people know that our skin has a microbiome, but that's actually how we end up with things like a staph infection, because staph is a bacteria that can overgrow on our skin. And so our skin actually has a really delicate balance of different microbes with it. And you made a good point of like, it's actually okay if our skin is dirty and there's these beautiful microbes. There's a book called Eat Dirt.
Mm,
And in that book, it's all about the beneficial bacteria that you can find in the world, like how wonderful gardening could be, or even
mm.
like putting your feet in the sand, not just for the minerals that's in sand, but for the microbes that live in the sand that's getting on the surface of our skin.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I love that.
So, is there anything else that you would like to say? Any advice for maybe parents that are just like losing it right now with their
Oh, yeah. Gosh, yes. I would say don't lose hope, because it's hard. It's really hard, but if you don't give up and you're there for your child, you'll get through it. But one big thing, and I lost sight of this for a while, and it's super easy as a parent when you're very concerned about your child, is don't forget about yourself. So if you're not in a healthy state of mind and you're not getting sleep, like I wasn't, you're not taking care of yourself. And if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else. So I think that's the biggest thing. Anybody with any sort of like child with a chronic illness or a caregiver of any sort, right? Not just for children, like I think we forget to take care of ourselves and we feel guilty for taking care of ourselves, especially when all you see is suffering in front of you. But inside your body and your mind is probably screaming for help too, but you just don't hear it because all you hear and see is what's in front of you. So that's a huge lesson that I learned and that I like to pass on. The other thing is ask for help and support, like find a community find a community where people are going through something similar so you don't feel alone. If it's parents because they're dealing with children with eczema, or if it's you yourself, like there's just so many good communities online and social media, and it can feel really good to connect with other people. And if like it's when we're talking about caring for ourselves, don't forget about your mental health. And if you want to talk to somebody about it, you don't have a support group of friends, like therapy is great. Therapy is a great option. Like there is no shame in having a therapist. Like it's amazing. Like, get help and talk to somebody because you shouldn't have to bear it alone. Like it's a huge, huge responsibility.
Thank you for that
So that's
advice.
what I'd
I
say.
think
Yeah.
it's very loving advice to say that, and I think a lot of people probably needed to hear that.
Mm.
So thank you so much for coming on my podcast today, and I'll leave your bio in the description. So if anybody wants to check out your products or anything about you, they can click the links down below.
Yes, thank you. That's very nice. And say goodbye to Oakley. He's still passed out over there.
All
Thank
right.
you, Michelle. It's so nice to be with you today.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.